Congratulations, Blake. You got our backup running back.
I-G-E-R-S. Tigers!
This is the reaction that getting Notre Dame's backup running back produces. This is what you're giving me.
You know what happened when somebody from the Midwest who was a backup came down to the bayou? What happened, right? The guy's name was Joe Burrow. Have you heard of him?
You're not. You're not comparing Logan Diggs to Joe Burrow. I'm
saying every time somebody comes down from the Midwest,
I'm just saying that it's rich that all these guys that were backups and we're not going to have significant roles at Notre Dame are leaving to go to other schools, and these other schools are excited that they're getting these players. That's all I'm saying. It's happened for a few guys now.
First and foremost, don't sit here and act like Logan Diggs is Rudy Poo when he had 1,000 yards from scrimmage.
He is a very good running back. I will admit that. I was excited that he signed when he did as a recruit. I'm disappointed he's leaving, but it did not, from what I've heard, sound like he was going to contribute very much this upcoming season.
Joe, horse shizite.
No, he was getting beaten out for significant reps.
Joe,
that's not horse shit.
Horse shizite.
That's not horse shit. I checked I reached out to.
Okay, well, you know what?
Found out.
Then you know what? Fire Marcus Freeman right now.
Well, first of all,
so you mean to tell me that your answer,
yes,
is to bench 1,000-yard back?
No. He's not being benched. He was never the primary guy. It was always Audric Estime, and then they had other guys that were stepping up
against Clemson.
He had a great game against Clemson.
I forget what his rushing game because he's a mediocre back. He ain't Logan Diggs.
They run a committee approach with Estime being the lead back.
So
Estime was the lead back in the committee. But my point is that Logan Diggs was never the lead back. He sometimes was the hot hand, but it wasn't frequent. It only happened in a couple of games.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he'll be great at LSU. I just don't think Notre Dame's losing very much. I'm not worried about it.
Well, you should when you're not beating Stanford and Marshall. But nevertheless, we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We hope that you guys are making it a good one. We know that we are as well. The SEC and ABC, along with ESPN, make a final, or what we would call maybe a formal announcement.
I'd put it that way.
You know, all of this has been reported on. Okay, Greg Secchi's talked about it, but now ESPN is showing that the SEC is going to be their prime time. Obviously, Texas and Oklahoma were a part of their press release and their video release today, so we'll touch on that here throughout the show. The Magnificent Seven of the ACC, we will touch on as well. It's the ACC devolving. Call me the Bayou Bloodhound because Daddy's smelling BS. Okay?
There's a lot of BS, and we are going to get into that.
And then Dylan Raiola commits to the University of Georgia. What does it mean for Ryan Day and Matt Rule? Why I will tell you maybe we'll have the discussion. Maybe it's not the worst thing that could have happened for Ohio State and Nebraska, because the portal is always a big thing. We've seen what's happened at Georgia when guys have had to sit behind. Is Dylan Raiola going to sit for 2 years?
Right.
Which could be a possibility.
Well, and that's actually a really interesting point, and I was a little perplexed why you were bringing that up. And one of the things, a lot of the articles I was reading on Raiola brought up the fact that he is one of the highest recruited kids next to Justin Fields. And this literally happened to Justin Fields, where he came in and he was behind Jake Fromm, played a little bit, and then he transferred to Ohio State. So that's certainly still on the table. I'm sure that Ryan Day and Matt Rule are considering that's the case. And honestly, if he transferred, he'd probably go to the school that he has family connections to. So that's an interesting angle to bring up with that.
Well, I mean, you got Brock Vandegrift, who was a highly recruited young man.
Mm-hmm.
He's behind. Connor Beck, our back, had to sit behind. And then, look, Justin Fields had to sit behind. And, I mean, doesn't mean that you have to just continuously stop recruiting Dylan Raiola. But, look, Ryan Day and Matt Rule got shoved in the locker by the back-to-back national champions. We'll talk about that as well. So, massive show. I guess we can throw in Logan Diggs to start off if you want, because LSU is king and Brian Kelly. Hey, I thought Brian Kelly couldn't recruit.
You bring this up every single time. Of course, he went and got the guy that was previously at his school. That wasn't going to be hard for him. Who are they competing with?
Hey, so what about the top 5 classes that Notre Dame can't get?
Oh, I'm not saying that Brian Kelly can't recruit. I'm just saying, and I've
Oh.
never disagreed with that statement. I've never disagreed with that statement. All I'm saying is that Logan Diggs is not hard for him to get.
It's hard for Ed Orgeron.
He pulled a guy that he already convinced to go to one school. It's not going to be hard for him to show up at another.
Interesting that Tommy Reese didn't offer. I might have some thoughts on that about some things that I hear through the grapevine. Nevertheless, let's get into it. Everybody do us a favor, and it's good to be back. We missed yesterday.
Yes.
You were feeling underneath the weather, so I was like,
yes.
You were like, oh, Mr. Blake, can we go on Tuesday instead of I was like, yeah, sure, Joe. We can
I wouldn't have made it through a full show. I would be getting up every 5 minutes if we tried to do a show. So
that's so miserable. So miserable.
It's terrible, but I'm glad to be back though, Blake. I'm glad we're back.
It's good. It's good to be back with you, buddy. All right, everybody, do us a favor by hitting the like and share to all of those social media groups. If you're listening to us on Facebook, you guys have been killing it. We've been growing every single month while we've been live on Facebook. Do us a favor, hit the like, hit the share. Don't forget to go over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button and notification bell while you're at it. If you're listening to us wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. And we got some big news coming. We'll let you know where to catch all of our shows live on your smart TV coming up soon. All right, Joe, let's talk about our good friends, though, over at BetOnline. Very quickly, got a lot to discuss. We're back next. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag. BetOnline.ag. We're back. Interesting. Texas is over under, fella, half a game today. If you were looking at our good friends over at BetOnline, no longer 9.5. It goes down to 9.
A little more realistic.
Well, it's interesting that it's fallen. So, Joe, look, you issued those numbers. Okay, and teams go up or teams go down. Normally, a lot of teams stay the same. When teams start going up and down, that's when a lot of people start making their predictions. Like Minnesota's went up. Something to really look at. Minnesota going up 1.5 games on some sports books. Something maybe we should touch on later before we get on to kick off. But nevertheless, Joe, we got a lot of stuff going on. So the SEC, well, let's do this. 2 minutes. Don't stay on long. Logan Diggs, LSU, go.
Yeah, I mean, I already said this at the beginning of the show. Logan Diggs was the backup running back for Notre Dame. I know somebody pointed out that
he ran for the most rushing attempts at Notre Dame. Just throwing that out there.
Well, that's a testament to his production that he was outperformed by Audric Estime. Look, Audric Estime was going to get –
Actually, he wasn't if you go to the stats, but nevertheless, go ahead.
Oh, Estime had more rushing yards than Logan Diggs.
But he didn't have more catches, more receiving yards, or more touchdowns.
Estime's less of a receiver than Logan Diggs.
So he's not an all-around back.
He is one hell of a battering ram, and I know that we're going to be completely fine with Audric Estime. Look, my point is, from what I have heard, that he was going to be given a more significant role and that Logan Diggs was not happy with the role that he was getting, which is why he hopped in the portal. Power to him. He's going somewhere to play for a coach that recruited him, and he's going to a comfortable situation close to home. It makes sense. It makes perfect sense. I think that you're getting a strong secondary back in this offense. He's not going to be somebody who's probably going to be a primary every single down option, but will provide you with a lot of juice. He definitely is a home run threat. Great back. I believe he was a 4-star recruit when he came out, but you guys pulled a pretty good kid.
Yeah, he was actually a 3-star kid, believe it or not. Very
high 3-star? Maybe I'm misremembering.
Very high 3-star. Yeah, it was on the brink. A lot of people didn't know where to put him at. They didn't realize, I I guess, either put him at linebacker or put him at running back, and then Orgeron recruiting him to be a linebacker. He didn't want that. You know the story. Goes to Notre Dame. Orgeron and LSU start losing, and then when LSU would lose a massive game was the same week, if you remember, when Logan Diggs leapfrogged a dude along the sideline. So a lot of people, Logan Diggs for LSU fans is like the face of what Orgeron missed, right?
Yes.
In some of those last recruiting classes. But look, Frank Wilson, LSU's running back coach, and has been tagged as probably the best recruiter in the Southeast. If you remember a lot of those great running back cores, he was a godfather of like having backfields of like Jeremy Hill, Terrence McGee, and then ultimately would be like his philosophy would be the reason why you got guys like Leonard Fournette, Darius Geis in the backfield. I think that's a lot of the same thing here. I think Logan Diggs, I don't know if he's going to be RB1, but with him and Jaden Daniels, I think what LSU wants to run, it complements him a little bit more than what I do think that Sam Hartman type of offense that Notre Dame is going to have to transition to here. I do agree. I think it's a better fit for both. Let's transition, though, because we got a lot to talk about. So the SEC, Joe, made it somewhat final today along with ABC and ESPN. Not only that Texas and Oklahoma are going to be joining, we kind of already knew that, but it's getting real now, right? Like they're already starting to push Oklahoma and Texas being in the SEC starting 2024. Look, we're going to talk about this with the ACC, but let's start on the SEC first. I think ESPN made the right deal here, right? Like if the SEC and SEC fans were really aggravated being with CBS the whole time, the TV timeouts being 7 to 8 minutes long. A lot of SEC people are glad that ABC and ESPN has the SEC. And look, it's where the SEC's made a lot of their money. It's why they're right there with the Big Ten and much money that they're garnering. So I do find it a little bit interesting. Joe, we're more than 16 months away from the 2024 year, right? Like it's not like this is anywhere close. They're already pushing it. It's a big deal. I think that, ESPN and the SEC obviously are excited to get Texas and Oklahoma because we can argue all we want to, Joe. There's still two very massive brands that you're adding on here.
I think it's also, just to peel back the curtain on the sports business side of this thing, it's very telling of the current state of where ESPN is at right now. They had massive layoffs, massive cuts because of the state that the Disney Corporation's in. So they're trying to plug and promote this as much as possible. Their biggest money makers is always going to be live events, and it's always going to be premier live events like this. I believe that Alabama LSU game was one of the most watched programs of the season, and that Alabama Tennessee game was one of the most watched programs of the season. The SEC garners attention. You can get people to tune into a mid-level game like Mississippi State versus Arkansas that might be not as sexy on paper, unlike with the Big Ten. Nobody's watching Minnesota versus Iowa. No one wants to gouge their eyes out and watch that crap. Instead, the SEC is going to get the attention of way more people across the country because of the brand recognition. So this deal is significant. And then to add two even more premier brands to it, Texas and Oklahoma, is only going to boost them even more. So they need this to go well because right now, as we've seen, ESPN is hurting.
Well, I will tell you, the only thing that I want in this trade is the jingle, the SEC jingle. I don't want CBS to keep that. But that's
not the ESPN jingle, though. I don't care. They use that on Army Navy games.
At 2:30 on a Saturday night in Death Valley. I want or a Saturday at 2:30 with Georgia and Alabama playing, or whoever it is. I want to hear that theme song.
Man, you better get used to hearing that for Rutgers, Maryland. You better get used to that.
Can I tell you something?
Go ahead.
I ain't watching that.
I don't blame you.
I'm not watching bad football. There's another game on that's going to be better.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the significance of the SEC being on ESPN the way that it is.
Well, look, and we'll start breaking down a lot of these teams. I know that you and I talked off air. We're really going to start breaking down a lot because we're not too far away from opening kickoff. Look, I just think that now, Joe, with this SEC expansion, and we can go to the ACC now and transition in this. But look, we continue to see this, right? Like we continue to see this expansion thing continue to be talked about. And look, I just, for whatever reason, maybe I'm just too naive. I just can't see, for what it's worth, I can't see there just being two mega conferences. I can't. And so I do think that the SEC and the Big Ten add two behemoths of brands. Let me ask you this, though. Let me ask you this. I haven't heard the this take yet from anybody. So I want to give it to you first.
Okay.
Who won the deal? The SEC getting Texas or Oklahoma, or did the Big Ten win their deal and getting USC and UCLA?
You're not going to like this, but I think it's actually the Big Ten because the deal that they earned after the fact, what they were able to get from all of those new broadcasting partners, isn't it the annual per school rate more than what the SEC is currently taking in? Or am I misremembering that?
It has fluctuated. It has fluctuated. There have been years where the Big Ten has had a couple of more revenue than the SEC, yes.
But what I'm getting at here is I do think it's the Big Ten just for the reason that the SEC can survive.
Well, the SEC beat them now with the new ESPN deal.
I think it's definitely possible now that they've got all these bigger brands. But my whole take from this is that the SEC would have continued to be successful no matter what. I think the Big Ten was slowly drifting away from relevance. No one wants to admit that, but it was slowly starting to get to that point where outside of the top two teams, there wasn't much competition. You now add in two teams, or at least one that is going to provide significant top-end competition. So just for that angle, I would say the Big Ten.
I'm going to say the SEC, just in the simple nature that it's Texas and Oklahoma. UCLA is not relevant.
For football, yes. I'd say for basketball, they're very relevant.
I mean, yeah, but are they? Because USC's kicking their rear ends and recruiting right now from a basketball perspective. So are they?
Currently may be shifting a little bit, but historically UCLA is a very notable brand. I know that you hate using the word historical, hence your hatred for the University of Notre Dame, but it's still a good brand.
Word historical. I'm a history major. What are you talking about? No,
I'm talking about that if I reference teams that historically were good but currently aren't, you usually get upset.
Because yes, because Joe, did you watch? You live in LA, correct?
I do live in LA.
Okay, how much UCLA basketball did you watch last year?
Like maybe a game and a half. Maybe.
Okay,
I don't even get I don't pay for cable, so I don't get the local channels.
What do you pay for?
YouTube TV. So like I don't have, Sportsnet LA or whatever the heck it is because I don't want to pay for the hookup. It's more money than just buying YouTube TV.
Do you like YouTube TV?
Yeah, it's significantly better than cable. But we don't need to get into that.
Okay, well, I mean, just so look, I just disagree. I think right now in all sports, like for example, Texas has made more runs in basketball than UCLA. Now I know UCLA had one Final Four with LaMelo or the ball, what a big baller brand. I don't remember the kid's name, but it wasn't LaMelo. Who was it? Lamar.
Oh my God.
Lamar Ball. No.
Oh my God. No. LaMelo's his little brother. Why am I forgetting his name?
You got Melo, Jello, Concello. I mean, I don't
know. No. Maybe it was This is going to bug me. I got to look this up.
LaMelo Ball.
Lonzo
Ball. That's it.
Lonzo Ball. Yeah.
Look, I just think it's a bigger overall brand. And I think it's why you're seeing teams in more of a Southeast region trying like the ACC. So as we transition and talking about the ACC, I think that's why you're seeing the teams like the ACC teams in the ACC trying to leave and join the SEC because it has been reported that their deal is going to be massive, more or bigger than the Big Ten currently is. And the ACC doesn't get a structure. But I don't know if everybody saw this, so I'll just preface this and then we can get into this. Mm-hmm. So Brett McMurphy reported that there are 7 teams in the ACC that want to leave: Clemson, Miami, Florida State, North Carolina, NC State, Virginia, and Virginia Tech. They call themselves the Magnificent Seven. I mean, is this a Marvel movie? Like what are we talking about here? That's
so ridiculous, by the way, that they added that nickname to this grouping. It's so unbelievably corny that they did that. They think that they're so pretentiously better than the other programs.
Did you just throw up quote marks because we didn't see it?
I did not. I just put my hand out. I don't know why I did
that. Okay.
My point is, though, is that is one ridiculous detail that, frankly, is not being talked about enough.
I agree. Why? Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Like the Magnificent Seven. So, look, I said this earlier, so clip it. Mm-hmm. You know, Joe, they called me the Bayou Bloodhound. You know why?
Why?
Because I can smell bullshit from a mile away. And this is bullshit. Let me tell you why. This is what is being reported. So this isn't something that I'm coming up with. This is just what I've read through multiple people that are reporting on this, and I'm going to read it out. So if this is correct, I'm just reacting off what's being reported. So 7 teams call themselves the Magnificent Seven, whatever they want to call themselves, and want to leave the ACC. Well, in the grant of rights deal, you need 8 teams to be able to want to leave the conference for that deal to be null and void. You mean to tell me that Duke wouldn't want to leave with North Carolina? You mean to tell me that Georgia Tech would not want to be in the SEC with Georgia? I smell BS. What I think's going on here, now they had their spring meetings, the ACC and these ADs and all this kind of stuff, and they all left, and all of them were quiet. They said they couldn't. Jim Phillips said we couldn't talk to the media. I think Jim Phillips went up in that meeting and said, listen, you Rudy Poo candy asses, I'm working on this deal. Y'all need to calm down. That's what I think happened. Clemson's the only team in the ACC right now that has any weight or merit to say what should be happening. You know who doesn't? Virginia, Virginia Tech, NC State, and I'm going to call it what it is, Miami. They had no business calling any kinds of shots. Clemson's the only team in there that has any relevance of calling any shots. When you read all of this, what were your thoughts?
So there's 2 parts of this. One, I am in agreement with you on this, that this is clearly a play to get the shifted deal that favors the teams that are generating the most eyeballs. It is essentially what they are seeking, and it's Florida State and Clemson are the ones that would significantly benefit from this, is that they would earn more money if their teams are more successful.
Right.
They're generating more viewership. The article that I read had quoted, if a playoff-bound Florida State will earn more money than a Duke team that goes to the Mayo Bowl. That's all fair. It's pretty unique because we don't have a lot of broadcasting deals that are structured this way, but it is understandably fair in a conference like this that is so lopsided. So I agree with you. I think that it's total BS, but I don't think it should be BS. I don't think it should be BS. I think a lot of these teams have a lot to gain if they go to other conferences. I really do. I think the ACC has skated by, and having to have watched them for basketball and other sports because Notre Dame has a loose affiliation with them. I think that this is the weakest conference. I think it's weaker than the Pac-12. I think it's weaker than the Big 12, and it has not been discussed as such. And I think that this is a legitimate opportunity for these bigger brands, maybe not all 7 of them, to depart and go elsewhere. They could easily, Clemson and Florida State could easily go into the SEC. North Carolina and Duke could go to the Big Ten. I would love to see that happen because I think that the ACC is not properly positioning these programs to succeed.
I vehemently disagree with you on one major point that you had in there. You ready?
Okay.
I do not agree with Joe. I do not agree with you when you say that the ACC is the worst or second to worst or whatever, however you want to structure it. I don't think that they're the second to worst conference in the, I guess, athletics, maybe. Okay, because you have UNC, you have Duke, you have teams in other sports. You have Virginia that's won a baseball national title. You have multiple teams that in other sports are more relevant than guess who? You ready for it? The Big 10, the Big 12 and the Pac-12. They are more relevant than those teams. I understand that you are in situations where the Big 12 just got to a national title, right? And with TCU, okay? Name anything else that they're relevant in. Because the Big 12, Texas and Oklahoma's out. The Pac-12, okay, USC and UCLA are out. Are you going to sit here and tell me that those two conferences aren't in more dire need than the ACC? Let me tell you what I think is going to happen, okay? I think ESPN's going to make a deal with them. I think they're going to add a couple teams, some mid-majors that bring in money, okay, and they're going to add a couple teams to it, and they're all going to get 50 to 55 million a year, and then everybody's going to shut up. That's what I think, because ESPN, where's the ACC going to go? Where are those teams going to go? You know who pays for them already? ESPN.
Right.
ESPN is their deal. So it doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't matter what they think. Those teams aren't going to the SEC when ESPN's running your deal anyway.
Well, okay, so to counter your point that you're making, saying that those other conferences aren't as strong, my argument here is that it's very top heavy. There are, let's start the argument, 4 schools here that are holding all of the weight for the ACC. Florida State, Clemson, UNC, Duke, and then let's say maybe Virginia.
Well, and Duke's not even in, Joe,
Duke's not even in this.
They're not even in this.
But in other sports, they're particularly dominant. In basketball, they're very good, a very good lacrosse program.
Baseball, they're really good.
Very good. But with you remove all of those teams, none of those other teams are carrying any water. It is a boat that's tipping significantly and being held up by those better programs. I feel like I have more parity in the other conferences. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
I disagree with that, Joe, because when NC State is selling out every single seat in baseball, they're selling out every single seat in basketball. Are you having that on the West Coast? Are you having that in the Big 12?
I think so. It depends on the sport.
You mean to tell me that NC State's not a bigger brand than Cincinnati?
Okay. I think that NC State definitely is a bigger brand than Cincinnati, but Cincinnati is slowly approaching that. Cincinnati has made
the worst team in the only team in the ACC that doesn't belong is Syracuse.
So you're saying that, well, yeah, they're a Big East team through and through, but the Big East is now dead. But what does Wake Forest do? They've been a little competitive in football the past couple of years.
Wake Forest is the number 1 team in the country in baseball. And Joe, as long as baseball is continuously turning a profit now in college athletics, Wake Forest has a purpose.
That's a fair point. I'm trying to think of a better example.
The ACC is not the ACC is the 3rd best conference in the country. It goes SEC, Big 10, ACC.
I don't think it's that far off, though. I really don't think that there's not really this massive drop off.
From where? Name a Big 12 school. Take Texas and Oklahoma out. Okay. Take USC and UCLA out. Name a bigger brand than what the ACC has. Because Baylor? Duke, North Carolina, and Clemson, trample any other school in any other conference not in the SEC or Big 10.
Okay. But again, part of what I'm also getting at with this, I'm trying to say that it is top heavy, but if we're just looking this particularly from the football perspective where they're drawing the most money, they're drawing the most eyes. I can't justify outside of 2 teams that this conference is deep.
I can. I can.
What
Because
are the other two teams? Or outside of those two teams,
all
what
right,
are the other
I
ones?
got one for you. UCF.
Okay.
Historically, you want to talk about historics?
Mm-hmm.
Is not a bigger brand than anybody, and I mean anybody in the ACC. Neither is Cincinnati.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that.
Please, sweet baby
wait,
Jesus.
Wait, I would
hold on one
okay.
second. Please, sweet baby Jesus, Pac-12, add San Diego State. I double dog dare you.
Well, San Diego State just went to the Final Four. Like, it's not like they have a bad basketball program. They don't have bad athletics.
Gulf Coast made it to a Final Four, my guy.
It is, first of all, Cincinnati and UCF are more consistently across the board competitive in other sports than I think Wake Forest is. You're pointing out baseball, but outside of baseball, what do they have? What do they have outside of baseball?
Buddy, I'm just telling you, with ESPN, baseball is a big deal. And look, here's what people don't realize. Okay. It's like you have Tennessee, you have South Carolina, so let me give an example. I'm not even going to use LSU, who's playing right now at the current moment. Mm-hmm. You have number 6 Coastal Carolina playing North Carolina. Joe, on a Tuesday, it's sold out. There's not a seat in the, like I'm watching it right now. Like it's on my screen. Okay. Packed. That's where those other teams and other conferences don't get, is when it comes down to it, they put rear ends in seats. You know what else ESPN's gone to? You want to wait? The front page of ESPN was what? For like a 3-week span, women's basketball. You've seen my numbers on women's basketball. What has ESPN transitioned to? Women's basketball is turning a massive profit.
Yes.
And I am just telling you, when you got Duke, when you have UNC, when you have these other teams that are in there and turning profits, I'm sorry, man.
But historically, none of the ACC teams in women's basketball, like none of these brands that we're talking about, like most of the good teams are in the SEC, or it's UConn, or it's Baylor is historically one of the best programs in the country.
Well, not anymore. Baylor's not anymore. I mean, we just took the coach, you know. I mean,
right.
Let me ask you this. Let's transition really quickly.
Okay.
Or not transition, but add on to this. You know who can save the ACC?
Notre Dame is not. I pray that Notre Dame does not go to the ACC. I pray.
Why?
Because I just talked about it. I don't think this is a good conference. If they're going to go somewhere, they should go to the Big Ten. And regionally, it makes the most sense for them to go to the Big Ten. Them playing in the ACC with this loose affiliation that they have anyways for their other sports and then not for football, it already doesn't make sense regionally. And I know that the Big Ten now has 2 teams in California. But them playing in the Big Ten makes way more sense for all of their historic rivalries, for their regional fan base. All of that makes way more sense for them to play in the Big Ten than for them to go to the ACC. And frankly, unless the ESPN is promising to cough up massive amounts of money, I don't think that Notre Dame is going to pass up joining the Big Ten over the ACC or them staying independent.
Do you think ESPN wouldn't after what they pulled today?
Well, actually, I don't know how much money they're currently going to have.
Just for reference, ESPN just signed Pat McAfee.
Out of desperation.
Well, desperation don't mean nothing when you got a buyout at $60 million to get him in here.
Well, they know that he's going to draw attention, and right now their current programming is not drawing that attention. They have the money, but it's a matter of what they're going to have in a couple of years, and if they're going to be comfortable. They're going to have the money to attract Notre Dame.
All right, well, let's talk about Notre Dame, because I think you're wrong. I do believe that ESPN does have enough money that if they wanted to throw it at Notre Dame, they could do it.
They could. They absolutely could, but they've already have a long-standing relationship with NBC, and NBC is now involved.
It's interesting it's interesting that you brought that up. COVID was a big deal for ESPN with Notre Dame. There was an ESPN executive that came out and talked about when they asked about Notre Dame and joining the conference and all that. They talked about that both the Clemson games and NBC. that they would try to work a deal with NBC to where NBC and ESPN can both share revenues and get them to the number at the same exact number at minimum to where the ACC new structure would be. It's just of my belief, if ESPN really wanted to do it, Joe, they could do it. Let's not act like they can't now.
Yeah, they absolutely can. My main reasoning of why I don't think that they should join the ACC is, again, long-standing relationship with NBC and the historic rivalries plus the regionality of their fan base. It makes the most sense for them to join the Big Ten.
Everybody lives in South Bend, Indiana that's Notre Dame fans?
No, but I think if you meet most people in the
where's Notre Dame's base?
It's across the country. It's national.
Okay, then don't tell me that you're not regional. And Joe, how can you?
How many people in the South though do you know where the ACC? There are a lot of teams in the South that reside in the ACC. How many people in the South?
Joe, Joe, Indiana is closer to North Carolina than Louisiana is.
I'm not good with geography.
Well, look it up. I mean,
Notre Dame, most people in the Midwest, a lot of people in the Midwest are Notre Dame fans. It's a very national fan base. I'm from the Northeast and I'm a Notre Dame fan. But their historic rivalries, I think, is the biggest aspect of this.
So who is Notre Dame's biggest rival?
USC, Michigan. They also have had rivalries with Michigan State, Purdue. All of those are more significant than anyone that they currently play in the ACC. They've developed a little bit of a rivalry with Clemson, but that's not a year-to-year one.
Trust Jack Schwarbick to do that?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Don't underestimate him, Joe. We're going to be sitting here in 2 years, and this is what you're going to do. You ready? Mr. Blake, you were right.
Well, you might be right about them going to the ACC, but I'm not going to concede that it was the right decision.
I mean, why haven't they been playing in the Big Ten in basketball?
Because they have a contract with the ACC. They play in the Big Ten for hockey, so it's not like that they don't have
we don't have hockey in the South, Joe. We just can't do it.
Well, there's no ACC for hockey for that exact reason.
There's also no AC cold enough to get us to have hockey down here either.
Exactly my point. They're one of their best programs in hockey.
Who, Notre Dame?
Yeah, one of their best programs in hockey. They're always in the Frozen Four. Hockey is the baseball for Notre Dame. Don't laugh at me.
I say that when Notre Dame got to Omaha last year.
Because they don't do it consistently. They don't do that. They lost their coach to FSU. It took a stroke of one pen to get him to FSU.
Well, that's where he's from.
Yeah, but they could have kept him with enough money. You don't think they could have kept him?
Well, then what happened with Palmineri and Brian Kelly?
Exactly. They didn't cough up the money. That's the big thing here. They didn't cough up the necessary money to keep
Buckshot Kid on YouTube says Notre Dame sucks in hockey.
He doesn't know what he's talking about. They're consistently one of the best teams in their conference. That's a total. Go check the standings.
Okay, if you say so.
Yeah.
Joe, let's do this. We got about 20 minutes, and I'm sure that we will have enough time because I know you want to have some time to talk on this young man. So let's do this. Let's take a quick break. Let's talk about our good friends over at BetOnline. Let's return. Maybe answer some questions here at the end. So if you have questions, thoughts, concerns, put them inside the chat, and then we're going to talk about Georgia and Dylan Raiola. I think it's going to be a big, hot topic that we need to discuss. We talk about it next. Stay tuned. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. something that Dylan Raiola might hear is that exact jingle in a couple of years. So the number one recruit in the country, the top quarterback in the country in the class of 2024, Dylan Raiola, has committed to the University of Georgia. Now, there's two things here. Number one, he was formerly committed to Ohio State and Ryan Day. He decommitted. And also, Joe, Dylan Raiola had a dad that played center at Nebraska and was with the Detroit Lions for 14 years. All of a sudden, here comes Big Kirby in that bowl cut and says, I want Dylan Raiola. And Ryan Day and Matt Rule got shoved into a locker. Don't tell me that regular season and postseason wins don't matter. Don't tell me they don't matter, Joe.
They absolutely do. There's a couple interesting layers to this, though, too, Blake. So Raiola, his father, Dominic Raiola, who you mentioned played for the Detroit Lions, he was the starting center for Matthew Stafford for a very long time, and considers him an uncle. So that was pretty significant in his recruitment. Apparently, the relationships with Monken and Bobo was also very significant. I also didn't know this. Raiola's first offer that he received in 2021 was from the University of Georgia. So they've been on his tail, and Kirby's been really hot about getting Dylan Raiola as the future quarterback for this program. Here is one thing that does intrigue me, because we can certainly sit here and talk about, man, the rich keep getting richer, and I think that's the angle everyone's taking. But does a guy like Dylan Raiola succeed, and does he get on the field for a program like Georgia when we've seen five stars come in and out and they have not come and played to much success? The guys like Jake Fromm and Stetson Bennett have been the ones who have been a part of the teams that have competed in the national championship and won it. So I am sitting here wondering, can they get what they hope to get out of Dylan Raiola and what we expect to get out of him?
He's going to have to sit.
At least a year.
More than that.
Because of Carson Beck?
Because of Carson Beck. If Carson Beck has a good year and returns, and Brock Vandagriff.
You think that Brock Vandagriff, after not starting, would stick around and then still beat him out if Carson Beck left?
Here's the problem that I have with everybody saying that he wouldn't, or not even that he wouldn't beat him out, why Kirby Smart wouldn't start him. He started Jake Fromm over Justin Fields. He started Stetson Bennett over JT Daniels and those young quarterbacks. It's been his calling card. So, Joe, where I think that could he beat him out? Yep. You're damn right. There's no reason why he couldn't, why Raiola couldn't. Here's another thing. Kirby has a track record of not playing young quarterbacks. He just doesn't do it. So are you asking me, can he? Yes. Will he be the starter when he comes in? No. I don't believe that, because it's just what Kirby's normally done. Here's another thing too. If I am these other teams, like I think Ohio State will move on. I don't think Ohio State cares, because they
already got their guy.
Yeah, and the best name for a quarterback of all time, Aaron Noland, right?
Yes.
Not completely over for Nebraska. Because of the transfer portal, in 1 year, this kid could easily hit the portal and go to Nebraska. It could happen. Easily. So, look, the problem that I have with this, and this is just a microcosm of what normally happens, Georgia's going to just have so much talent, and they continue to accumulate that talent. But this is why the Big Ten and in the Big 12, this is why people in the Southeast laugh. Joe, you got a kid from Arizona who has no real business going to Georgia. He has no – what do they do offensively that's going to prepare him for the NFL? Now, they run a pro-style offense, and but so does everybody else.
Right.
He has no business being committed to Georgia. None.
Regionally, yes, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but
it makes no sense.
I mean, you're going to go with the program that's winning in national championships. If you're the number one recruit in the country, it's very appealing. And the SEC is the most dominant conference right now. I don't think it's surprising. I thought it was actually kind of shocking that he picked Ohio State originally, and that was where he wanted to go. It was also a bit surprising that he might have gone to Nebraska. But Georgia continues to get rich, as we're talking about. It's part of the appeal for these kids. Like, they're obviously going to want to go play where they can win a national championship. Like, why would he go to Ohio State when they've had guys of his caliber and not won it? Like, why would he do that? I'm sure that's his thought process.
Yeah, you know what's so wild about that? The last quarterback for Ohio State to win it all and have regionally or just halfway decent career and stayed in the NFL longer than most. Now I think CJ Stroud breaks that. Okay, was Cardell Jones, and he was the last one to win an Natty.
And I don't think he was like a super compared to the other guys.
But Dwayne Haskins didn't have a better career than him.
No,
and so it is interesting, but I don't really buy into that. We'll have to see. And look, I'm going to tell you this now. I'm going to tell you this. You ready to get really mad at me?
Sure.
I don't think Dylan Raiola is the best player in the country.
Are you saying that because you have somebody else in mind, or you just think that we're getting overly excited over a kid who's a quarterback?
Here's what I know. He'd be the 6th quarterback in last year's class.
That was because last year's class was stacked. It was very stacked. Raiola, though, I think is better than Arch. I think he's significantly better than Arch. You know what he's gotten some shades of comparison to? Who the reason why I understand now why you're saying that he's maybe not as good as we think he is. There's a lot of comparisons that can be drawn between him and Quinn Ewers. There absolutely are.
Joe, look, I'm not saying the kid's not good. I think he's better than Quinn Ewers. I think he's got a better throwing motion. I think he's a better overall athlete. When you see him run, I think he can run for power. He can run between the tackles. He can be elusive enough to run to the edge. I think he's got a body style like Mahomes. He's not Mahomes. He doesn't have the traits. He has the body style. Both of them 6'3", 220, 225, 230 pounds. Okay? They have the same body type. They walk the same. They both walk like a newborn toddler that just found their new legs and walks with a full diaper. Trust me, I've had 2 of them. I know what a baby with a full diaper walks around like. Bottom line is that there's just something with him when I see him throw that I'm not buying. I'm not buying it.
What do you mean that you're not buying? Is that you think that we're overhyping the power?
Well,
because he's got a pretty big arm. I'm not going to sit here and
massive arm, but so did Arch.
He's got a bigger arm than Arch does. Significantly bigger arm than Arch does.
Yeah, but Arch's big thing, everybody's like, oh, look at him throw the fade route.
He's supposed to be accurate, but he can't reach the sideline, then doesn't really matter. I think Raiola has that.
That's a 50-yard throw for most kids.
Yes.
People don't get that. Joe, if you're on the far left hash and you're throwing a hitch route, a 10, 12-yard hitch route, that might be a 37 to 38-yard throw. Like,
yes.
People don't understand that. They just see it 10 yards and they're like, oh, he can't throw it 10 yards. You freaking Rudy Poo, that's a 37-yard throw.
Simple math is hard for some people. I don't know, man. I think that Raiola's got some juice.
Included.
But I got an A in calc in my freshman year of college, so put some respect on my math skills. Dylan Raiola, though, dude, I really think that he's got the juice. I think that if he does stick around at Georgia, I know that you don't want to compare him to Mahomes, but this is the whole new wave, is that if the top quarterback recruit or one of the best quarterback recruits is kind of shows shades of the improvisational, big arm, throws on the run type kid, he's going to get comparisons to Mahomes and he's going to get propped up. We did it with Ewers, and we're sitting here doing it again with Raiola.
Raiola's got much more Mahomes traits than Quinn Ewers ever did. Quinn Ewers throws like this.
He's still got a big arm, but I agree with you that. I agree with you on that, though, on Raiola. Don't act like he doesn't have a cannon. Don't act like Quinn Ewers doesn't have a cannon. Quinn Ewers has a big arm. He's got a huge arm. He was one of the highest graded quarterback recruits ever for a reason. I think he actually was the highest graded. My main point here, though, that I was bringing up earlier, Blake, is I actually, and you kind of hinted at this by bringing up the whole Nebraska, Ohio State thing still being on the table. I don't know if he sticks around, and I don't think that he sticks around. And you also brought up the even more important aspect of this, is that very rarely do these young guys get on the field. And more often than not, these top-rated quarterback recruits that don't get on the field within that first year or two, they're very impatient. They want to go out there and play
They
as soon
really
as possible.
are. And Kirby doesn't like playing young quarterbacks.
Which
He
surprises
does
me.
not.
Well, it surprises me that he picked Georgia knowing that is what I mean.
Well, I mean, look, Kirby's a mother humper. Okay. I mean, the dude can freaking recruit. And look, Joe, we don't know. There's always a silver lining, right? Like there's always a silver lining of who's going to be that first guy that he does that with. You know, it's like, look, I've never been married before, so how do I know how I'm going to react? We have no idea what he's going to do. And look, Justin Fields wasn't ready. Okay, as much as people want to make that art, go back and watch his Georgia film. The kid was not ready at all going against what he had. Here's the interesting thing for me about Dylan Raiola, though. He's going to have such good weapons in reference to, and I call the O-line a weapon, the running game and offensive line, and they're doing some decent things with receiver. I think he gets a couple of big-time receivers to go there, which if he does that, can keep him around Georgia longer than what some people maybe believe that he would be there. I just don't I don't know if I still think he's got a couple of things he needs to work on. I think he needs to work on some of the things that he does inside the pocket. Sometimes you just need to stand there and throw and take the hit. Right?
Right.
Like,
I think sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
You're fine.
All I was going to say is I think one aspect of this that doesn't get talked about enough is that a lot of times these guys have an entourage that's following them of other recruits, other receivers, running backs. And we haven't seen Georgia really attract that many five-star big name receivers. And this might actually be the first class that they can really accomplish that.
All right, say that again so I understand what you're trying to.
I'm trying to say that these top quarterback recruits, and Raiola especially from what I've read, they attract an entourage of top receivers, tight ends, running backs that want to come with them to that school because they know the results that are going to play out on the field. And we don't really get a lot of those types of guys.
Can you name quarterbacks that have done that?
I mean, Arch was one of them.
Name one of their receivers.
I don't know the recruits' names off the top of my head.
All right, thank you.
I'm not that inundated with recruiting.
So then name where that's happened.
Arch was a good example.
With receivers that you have no idea who their name are. Continue.
I do know that from what I've read with Raiola, there are a lot of receivers that have made it pretty clear that they want to go and play with him.
There is no such thing as recruiting as package deals. It is.
I'm not saying there's a package deal, but I think that some kids are gonna make a decision based on him being there.
Joe, people call those package deals.
My point is
and I'm not talking about two small potatoes and a sausage package deals. I think that went over your head, but
my point is that Georgia doesn't get a lot of five-star receiver recruits. When they don't, they frequently do not.
No,
this might be a change for them.
No, they frequently do not. All right, I told you to table this. I'll let you do it if you want to.
Well, we're coming up on time.
Go on your rant.
What, the Iowa Penn State thing?
Yeah, go ahead and go on your rant.
It's not really a rant, but I think it's really freaking lame that Penn State picked their whiteout game for Iowa. And we've talked about Iowa. We've talked about how boring of a football team that they are. And Penn State's whiteout game, Blake, as much as you don't care about it, is a significant thing in the college football landscape.
You just don't understand me, bro.
I do understand. You told me you didn't care about it. You didn't want to talk about it.
That's not what I said. I said I just don't care to talk about it on when we could have been talking about how do you think the SCE stacks up since we're talking about Georgia?
Well, you're not going to fit that in 2 minutes.
No, we're not. Okay. Well, look, I could just care less. You know, if whatever games and teams you want to do your tradition with something like that, by all means do it. By all means do it.
I root for good football and good traditions, and I think that this is not a good football game. I'm not going to watch this game.
You say that.
We'll see if I actually do or not.
I mean, look, Penn State. I mean, the two toughest teams that they play this year, obviously Ohio State and Michigan. They could be a playoff team.
Yeah, but if they drop 40 on Iowa, 30 on Iowa, that's not going to be a very fun game to watch now, is it?
It is not. All right. Well, that defense is really good, man. Our number one defensive coordinator was Phil Parker. They
lost some dudes in the portal. And they also lost some dudes to the draft. So
yeah, like why in the hell would you recruit? Why would you draft Lucas Van Ness in the first round?
he's a dog. Don't speak down on Van Ness.
Was he a starter?
He wasn't, because they don't start underclassmen. Phil Parker knows what he's doing, but that was a poor decision on his part.
I rest my case, Your Honor.
Okay.
See you Saturday or tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Okay.
Back tomorrow.
Back tomorrow. Peace.